love my tabs. Don't mess with them.
Too many tabs. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the May 8th meeting of the Litchfield Facilities Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Shoemaker's making his grand entrance.
We did not save you a seat.
We get the seat of honor tonight. Throw that chair up here and then come on up here.
Oh, I'll sit right
I
here.
can scoot you. Move down.
Hey, everyone.
I don't need a whole.
Just texted Peter. My wife sold something on Facebook Marketplace, and the woman came to pick it up at 5:15 with a car the size of this table, so I had to help her get it.
I hope what you sold was smaller than the.
It was not. So, see how she
You
makes
needed a
out.
shoehorn?
Yeah, basically. Did you?
Matt, if it's okay, I'll jump in while you get settled. So,
perfect.
Mr. Andruskavich, I think, sent a email out to everybody on the committee. So we put a spreadsheet together. The spreadsheet does two things. It's got everybody's form responses. So when folks in the community signed up to be a member of the Facilities Improvement Committee, this captures the answers to the questions, and we'll figure out how to modify that so that people know, before we make this public, we'll make sure people are comfortable with the information that we're sharing on that. And then Matt and I talked about the importance of keeping attendance going forward, because we're meeting fast and furious, and there's gonna be a ton of information. It'll just be important to have a record of who is here. So if it's okay, I'm just gonna, because I have to admit, I'm still getting names and faces connected, so I'm just gonna go down the attendance list and make sure we capture today. So Amy Scheibels is remote. She is here with us on the screen, somewhere in the background, so I'll just log her in as remote. Brad Loeb. Brandon LeBake. Bruno Rothier, how do you say it? Ruthier? Ruthier, thank you. Brian Carney. Dan DeWitt.
Here.
Is it DeWitt or DeWitty?
DeWitt.
Thank you.
Yes, I've been getting it right all the time.
Denise McHugh. Jason LaMountain. Thank you. Joe Jositis. No. Joe Lassard. Thank you. Carrie Douglas. Thank you. You don't have to raise your hand, Carrie.
Oh, just because nobody knows who I am.
Marilyn Wade.
Everybody knows you.
Who are you?
All right.
School mindset, raise your hand.
Mike is absent. He let us know that. Owen Murray. Raylan Martin. Ray Peoples. Rich LaSalle. Bob Leary. Ron O'Blennis. And then from the school side, we've got Brian O'Connell, our new superintendent.
Nice
I was going to introduce him, Bob, with your email.
Nice to meet you.
As if I didn't feel bad enough. Bob comes in hot with the email. Thank you.
Dan Mitchell is present. Dave Ross is not here. Doug Totten couldn't make it tonight. Jake Hess is present. Jen Grantham is excused. She had a family matter. Matt made it. We won't put a T in there, Matt. And I am present. And now we have a record of this meeting. We'll go back and figure out what's happened the last three meetings. So Dan can be the other half of my brain on filling this in. All right. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so a few administrative things. I wanted to start by going back to some of the questions that were asked at the last meeting. But I think before we do that, there was a few questions about, information and whatnot. So Mike went through today and gave everyone on the committee access, right, to the drive? You added everyone to the drive?
Not everybody. I got you connected,
Okay.
but I wanted to make sure I had the full listing, and
Okay.
then that's the goal. So.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is, I know the website's not super easy to navigate for everyone, so we're gonna try to make sure we have everything in the Google Drive. There's gonna be a need to, and maybe we could get like a little subcommittee going to help clean up and organize the Google Drive, because there's a lot in there right now. Mike, I don't know if you wanna, because since you're broadcasting, I don't know if you wanna just pop in there and show what we have so far. Ron, you'll be excited to know that there's an entire folder dedicated to O'Blennis documents.
I
So,
have seen it.
yes. So,
So just if I can give a quick orientation for folks who are not familiar with the Google, you're going to find that when you log in, you're gonna have a shared drives that is a little different than shared with me, but this is a team drive or a shared drive. So when you click on it, these are all the team drives that are available to me under the district. The one you're interested in is this, District Facilities Improvement Committee. There are 21 people currently on this, and I will work during this meeting to get everybody else logged in, so if you don't have access to it. When you log in, everything related to facilities is in this folder. And so you can see all the history of what's been done over the last, I mean, to be honest, some of these files go back to 2000. There are records in here relative to attempts to build an elementary school back in 2000 on the middle school property. So this is a great archive because it has all of the stuff that we've been referencing. You know, questions that have been asked about just a variety of things. I would encourage you to poke around in this. I think Ron will attest to it's a rabbit hole of information. But if you spend some time and dig into this, this answers a lot of questions that people have asked, because it's not like we didn't do a lot of effort and a lot of work to get to the vote that we brought forward this year, and this has the history of that.
Awesome. So we will need, as a group or as a subcommittee of this group, we'll need to go through and make sure it's organized in a way that's makes sense for accessing stuff, because that has been one of our biggest challenges. So we'll try to task that maybe by the end of this meeting. As far as minutes for this meeting go, the school board has asked the person that takes minutes for the school board if they're able to take minutes for this as well. We're waiting on an answer from that, I think.
Yeah, we need to figure out, so I'm trying to figure out if that's part of the scope of the contract or if that's an additional
Separate
contract, because
right.
it was not part of what was
Right.
originally asked.
Yeah,
So,
given the amount of information that flows through this committee, we felt like it was important to have an actual minute taker. So we're working on that.
Can I ask a related question to
Of
that?
course.
And this, I may need the LCTV guys to pop out too. With the way the meetings have run in this room, when I went back and watched some of the videos, and I know that the minutes tend to be taken remotely, the audience conversation doesn't get picked up in this room.
Put a mic up.
Like the fire station, like that whole room is hot, you know, so I just didn't know from the LC, I know I see the boom mic up today, I mean, people on TV can't see it. Is that a workaround so that the whole room can be heard easily? I guess I'm
Yeah, we
asking
could-
the guys behind in the cabinet.
in your wall.
From Oz.
I think we also just need to double check if there's availability, but I agree. I mean, I do think that the fire station room might be a better layout for us to all not have people with their backs to each other and whatnot.
So something to consider, at least if we're gonna go to minutes and it ends up being that we use the same person who does the other minutes. I know those are gathered remotely, so I wanna make sure that all the conversation is captured on the video that then said minutes would be created from.
I'll check on the scheduling too. I know Andrew Cutter checked in the beginning, but we'll circle back. I think, Dan, if I'm correct, was it you that replied you replied with the map of the roof, right? When the ages of
So
the
yeah,
roof?
I have this, I don't think the whole committee has this yet. I sent it to the school board. Dave Ross went through and gave the age of the roof document. If I have it ready to go, if you want, I can respond to
Is
the
it in
email and
this
everyone
folder,
have.
Dan? Is it in this folder?
No, Dave sent it to me and I sent it like last week, and so I haven't.
But I
if you
can't,
want-
it's not there. I can't.
No,
click
it's
it.
not there. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna respond to the invite and I will attach it to it so everyone will have it in their inbox
Can I see that?
in about 3 seconds.
And if you can add it to the drive,
Oh, how nice.
then it'll be in the
Yep.
archive.
Did he also answer, or did you also ask the question on how far along we got with window replacement?
I asked him about the windows. He said that he was going to have to go back and look
Okay.
and do some estimating as well. It wasn't as he didn't have it as clearly documented as he did the roof. So,
Okay. So
I've asked Dave Ross that, and so he's working on an answer.
Okay, cool.
That's excellent, thank you.
As far as so this is just off the notes that I took, the spreadsheet on the cost of the 9 options that Kyle was going to update, he's still working on updating those. He's away this week in, I think, Ireland, so I don't have those back yet. We also have not nailed down a date for for Kyle to come with Bonnet Page and Stone over to,
I think it's the 28th.
is it, did he email? I may have missed the email.
I think so.
I asked him to email before he left, so he probably did. Okay, so we'll confirm that it's the 28th. I did talk to Kyle about it, and he said that he's happy for anyone that's here that wants to attend that, to come along, and that way we can all kind of see as he's going through what type of things they're looking at and ask questions, so.
What is that?
So Kyle, the architect, is gonna get the construction manager, and they're gonna come out to the school, and one of the things we asked them last time was, we're going off of a lot of old reports of condition, and so Ron had said it would be really good if someone just came in and like got up in the ceiling and looked above the ceiling panels and said, okay, this is the actual state of things, and Kyle said that they would be happy to come in and do some of that with us to
And
help
that's
us
on
get
the
them.
28th?
Let me,
It's on the 28th at 2 o'clock.
28th at 2 o'clock? Thanks, Ron. Appreciate that.
Well, Kyle just asked me if I was available, because I said I wanted to go, so he asked me if
Yeah.
that date was okay with me.
Okay.
So I assume that's,
I will, we'll make sure, I'll confirm that and we'll make sure that we have a calendar.
No, I talked with Kyle. If anyone wants to attend, I would ask that you not arrive until 3:15. And I've confirmed with Kyle, and that
Okay.
the 2 to 3:15 is going to be a lot of the exterior and like up on the roof. We can't all go up on the roof, but he's going to
Yeah.
he in the Barnapage stowed. So, and I'll tell Kyle that if we need to pause so that other people can join,
Yeah.
then we'll pause so that the true like the interior and the mechanical walkthrough can start at 3:15, and they'll just do the site and the roof.
I was just gonna say, because that's the end of your school day.
Yeah.
It'll be a good time.
Yeah,
No, so they'll get through some of the nitty gritty in the 2 o'clock hour, and then if people want to join at 3:15, if he needs to wait before, if he wraps up, I'll tell him to wait until 3:15 to continue on.
probably he'll say this, but the caveat he addressed is, there will be no discussion about fixing things.
Right.
It is observing, making observations, what's there, so that they can go back and put together recommendations from that. It's not a,
Yeah, we want to allow them to get through, and the goal of this is to. I asked them to take pictures so that way we have stuff that we can bring back and reference, and we can certainly have an in-depth conversation. That will be our task, to have an in-depth conversation at the next meeting that we all get together. So
because they, there's a lot they gotta get through, and the reason they're starting late is because of the school,
right,
Yeah.
So I don't expect any discussion of substance anyway.
right, yeah. It's more so we just want for transparency purposes, we want everyone to be able to see what's going on, see what we're looking at, and I would say. Maybe we won't bother them, but maybe one of us can be the point person for if someone says, hey, did you guys get a chance to look at this? We can, just in an orderly fashion address those things.
Mike, could you change my permissions in that shared drive so I can drop things in?
Sure can.
Before we jump into our agenda, which by the way, the agenda, the way we're going to post the agenda for these meetings is in the calendar invite. So you'll see in the calendar invite for each meeting, it'll have like the list of what we're going to do. Is there, since I know that Jen's not here, but are there any updates on any of the facilities right now that anyone that is pertinent to the group that?
Our septic alarm went off yesterday. So
That's mostly what I was thinking. Is it working still, or did we figure out what?
They came in. Dave can speak to the specifics, but I know that they were able to change things. And then it was an electrical component that in the alarm box, which is, as you'd obviously, I know everyone would guess, in the closet of the art room, where one would expect it to be.
So we knew where it was, at least. That's good. All right. And I assume there's nothing from the high school.
Not that I know of, and without Dave Ross here, I wouldn't want to speak to
And
anything.
again, general facilities update. I mean, since we're covering everything, the annual gym inspection took place at all 3 schools
Correct.
today. So we'll wait to hear the report from that.
Awesome.
That's not necessarily about the facility of the gym, but more the equipment that's involved.
Cool. All right. So the first thing that we thought we would tackle, well, the second thing we thought we would tackle today is the trying to tackle this group at a more granular level of what's our mission, vision, governance, and that type of stuff, which Dan so kindly gave some proposed notes on. So I'm going to open up the floor to have a conversation about that and see if we can nail this down real quick. And then after this, the other thing that I wanted to try to touch on is just I want to start a conversation about what information we want to gather from the community, or what we think is pertinent information to gather from the community, both about the failed bond vote and also about just, the education moving forward in Litchfield. What are our goals as they pertain to facilities? Does anyone want to jump in on the?
I'll jump in. On the governance, I thought that was a good outline. I didn't have too much issue with it. The one thing that I would suggest we might consider is knocking the requirements for a quorum down. It's a big group, and if we mandate 50%, we've seen a lot of different levels of participation. And I don't want to be too blocked because we didn't get a quorum. I would suggest 7 voting members would be considered a quorum.
I think.
I think on that front too, we need to figure out what the final people on the committee are, right? There's 30-something people on that email chain, and there's obviously not 30 people here today. Or any of the other meetings I've been to, right? Are people coming or not? Are you part of this or not?
So that's
And
part.
they need to make that call.
And that's part of why Dr. Jetty suggested that we keep, start taking attendance, so we know who was at each meeting.
It seems to be the same people at every meeting.
Yeah.
One thing,
Either here or out.
Yeah.
on that point, one thing that's not on this list, but it has been is a number of committees that I've been on, which is losing voting rights. Like you can be a voting member, but if you set that, after 3 missed meetings, you've lost voting rights. Like we can put in rules like that if we want to agree, so that you still have the participation, but at the same point, you can't have the person who hasn't been here for 6 months come in and sway a vote in one way or the other. So it's not uncommon for committees like this, maybe not on the municipal level, to put in that attendance requirement for voting privileges.
Unexcused absences.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
on
that's
that,
fair.
I'm on a committee for the Excellence in Education Award. If you have 2 missed meetings, you've lost voting privileges for the year.
So,
I was gonna say, it makes sense, because if you're not here at the meeting, then you don't have the context that goes with everything else that we're presenting, so.
Yeah.
agreed. In terms of voting rights, I think the easiest thing to do is start with people that are coming from other boards, or here by virtue of being on another board, or administrators. I don't remember did you guys have voting rights before?
So we never kind of ironed out, we've never done this process with this committee in the 4 years that I've been here, determined who has voting rights and who doesn't. So while it's an existing committee, it's also very new
Well,
too. So I thought it was a good thing to kind of figure that out.
All right, well, so we're going to back into you in a minute. Budget committee still is saying no, right?
Correct.
You're going to want to change that?
Oh, I refused to vote for it unless it was a non-voting, so no, I don't wish to change
It's
it.
just- I knew the answer already. Select board? Are you guys voting members?
I think so.
Okay.
I haven't been told no.
Matt, I think part of the conversation last time is this is an advisory committee
Right.
anyway. So whatever the vote is, it's all advisory to the
Right.
board. So we just reflected that and didn't get too caught up in the weeds on it, because
Right.
ultimately it's the 5 board members.
Yeah, right. But I mean, again, the school board has tasked us with building this committee, and then, hoping to get some actual valuable feedback that is representative of what we think the community is going to want. So I think that as a board, we're going to be giving a lot of deference to what this committee says. So,
I
Those are the
really
only
think
two.
you should vote, honestly.
what's that?
I really think that the budget committee members should vote.
Budget committee is not a
Are you
voting.
still on the budget committee?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
You can bring
up.
it up, but the budget committee is not been a voting member of any committee.
Well, they used to be.
But we'll go back through the minutes where it was originally put on this as a non-voting. I'm not sure when it became voting, but as soon as I found out, it got changed.
Was it in December, Terry? Do you remember the budget committee meeting when that conversation happened?
When they became non-voting.
But it became non-voting when Mr. Bork said, "Oh, I've been voting." I was like, "What?"
It was about that time frame, but I remember the meeting.
Right, like you said, they're an advisory board,
It's advisory.
the votes we're having here about what do we want to present is more of an internal thing for us to say what we're going to present to the school board or whatever on what actions we think they should take.
Right.
And then they can vote on it officially.
Right.
But the budget committee does not vote on the town's capital improvement planning, so it's consistent to not vote on this
Whatever the
one.
will of the budget committee is, we will respect.
But don't worry, I will be more than happy to share my opinion, voting or otherwise.
I am fully aware. Yes. You vote with your face anyways, Carrie. We don't.
I am not a poker player, can you tell?
All right, so what did we say? We said 7. It was
I suggest 7 is a,
and as far as the school board goes, we only one of us will vote.
Right.
Does everyone agree with the number 7? I mean, we have
7 to constitute a quorum.
Yeah.
I would raise it. People are spending their evenings here. I would give them a chance to have their voice heard.
No, that's for the quorum.
That's for
Not
quorum.
not for
Not for
the,
voting.
Yeah.
I'm not worried
Well,
about.
we're not saying only 7 can vote. We're saying a quorum will be
In
7.
order for the meeting to
quorum, yeah.
count, it has to have at least 7.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Off the top of my head, I would take half of the number of people in this room is the benchmark, so that's 7, 8, 9, something like that. So, I mean, I
And
think
usually
we're all
staff
involved.
doesn't have a vote. I mean, that.
So
they
we
normally
haven't.
wouldn't.
Yeah. So we need to talk about that. I think that we didn't really iron that out.
Yeah.
So, how does anyone feel about that? No, I mean you just said.
Well, I think we're looking at a good representation of the citizens of the town. So the people that are making the votes and the decision what to recommend to the school board should be that citizen group, right?
Okay.
I mean, looking around the room, if you take out administrators and the budget committee rep and one of the 2 school board members, there's 10 more of us here.
Okay.
I think 10's a good voting number.
No, but you know what, that requires everybody to be here. So like, if 5 of you weren't here, you couldn't have a meeting with it could be an informational meeting.
I'm talking about voting rights, not for
Oh,
quorum.
no, you're talking quorum though, not voting rights.
Yeah, so.
No, we're
so-
talking
Still
now.
stuck on
Now we
quorum.
transition to voting rights.
All right, gotcha.
So
Still on voting.
What's the verdict on quorum? Is 7 the number?
7's the number.
7's for quorum, yeah.
And we'll say that the admins are not voting.
Oh, I don't think we should be voting.
Okay. All right. There we go. So we have.
I have a question for Carrie. Are
Sure.
you here as a citizen or?
No, she's here from the budget
For the
committee.
budget committee, the rep, we go back to the budget committee and discuss. The concern was there are a variety of views on the budget committee, and for one person to represent the entirety, that puts a lot of weight on that saying, which may not actually carry the weight of the LBC. So here in a budget committee representative, but not voting.
But here to raise, some of the concerns that may.
Especially since there's a lot of financial impact associated with this. Just a little.
Okay. So
so all the citizens get to vote.
yes.
One of us gets to vote,
Yep.
We are a citizen automatically.
but I'm also sitting on the school board. So, the admins don't vote.
Admins don't vote.
Superintendent doesn't vote. So however many people are here or will show up
Brian,
next
you're coming
week,
into a non-voting.
It's okay.
so Larry gets to vote, Selectman
Then
gets to vote.
He was just going about people that voted.
I think both the school board members should get to vote. You're both citizens of the town,
Oh,
and I have no problem with that.
you may not, but how is the town gonna look at that? Like, oh, well, yeah, well, just send 5 school board members, you can swing a vote.
Well,
Well, at
we're
the end of the
talking
day,
about
it's the
two
5 of
people
us
that
that
are
I mean,
actually
Matt and I don't agree on
participating.
everything,
I just, you have to consider
on a
the
lot, but not
optics.
everything.
I think one point that could be made with respect to the school board members is that if they voted as members of this committee, and then they're also members of the school board, they're really getting 2 bites of the apple.
Well, this committee has no authority on anything.
Okay, but,
It's advisory.
so, but we're making a recommendation.
Right.
So,
You're already slanted towards that recommendation.
exactly,
Yeah.
so if it's just totally advisory, what's the sense of it?
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna be taking votes, so, I mean, you could say the same thing for the budget committee. You could make that argument for the budget committee, because you will be voting, but not specifically. You have to get the proposal from the school board. So I think in your case, you're either a member of the budget committee or you're a member of the community.
Right.
Yeah, it'll only be one of us. Like we're fine with that. It's fine.
Which is why I am not voting. As much as I am a very active member of the community, I am sitting in the budget committee chair, so as a rep, I will not be voting, because the LBC does not have a vote, even though I am an eligible taxpayer. I'm recorded here as a
And I
LBC.
think that's gonna be an important thing of this committee, right, when we decide things like this, is it's not how we feel, it's how we think the community is gonna react to the way that we set it up. Cause it's that representation and that outlook that we have to take into account. Cause if we don't, then this committee is gonna get no accreditation and no backing from everybody else.
To be
So
perfectly transparent.
Yep, and that's where I agree with like one school board. And it's from that purview that I'm saying that.
Yeah.
It's not from anything else, so and same thing with the budget committee and the other stuff, so I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we never intended for 2 school board members to vote, so. All right, so we've ironed out the voting rights. Mission and vision, everyone read Dan's statement and was cool with that. I thought it was great, Dan.
Oh God, no! Please edit it. I wrote it
Nope.
like, oh. I threw words in a paper.
Make sure
5
you
minutes.
signed it, Dan.
We're gonna put your
Take credit.
We're gonna put your picture next to it on the wall.
Like, quilt.
Was it
No, no.
ChatGPT?
No, I didn't do that. I actually.
It's a signs of a good education.
Okay, so we're good with that. Then the only other piece of this is, as we progress, it might make sense to divide and conquer on certain things. So we may, throughout the meetings, decide, for example, the Google Drive, like information presentation. I can tell you that I am not the best at organizing things, so I don't want to be responsible for being the one that organizes it in a way that I think other people will benefit from, because my sense of organization is a little skewed from what others find useful.
Doesn't the school district have a document for how they organize their data? Most organizations have a document that says that if it's this type of data, we put it here. These are the types of folders we put it in. This is how we
Well-
tag it for finding it.
I think what we're trying to do with our Google Drive is do it in a way that's going to be useful to this committee and useful to ultimately to the community when I anticipate that no matter whatever we do, we're going to need to do some sort of like website revamp to make it easier to find stuff. So I think that's really
Just, is it the same drive that I've been looking at all along? Is that the same?
Is it the same drive that Ron's been looking at?
Yeah.
Right, that's what he has access to, right?
Do I have access to that now?
I'm giving access every right.
One
So I'm
word,
actually not sure that I heard the vision, because I may have been added after the fact.
I handed it out at last.
All
minute.
right,
It's the
so,
paper.
okay.
And
Took
it's,
home and
We'll read. I'll read it. Is that
I
your
wanna-
nice way of asking? Will someone read it? I'm
Will you
happy
please read
to.
it to me?
Would you like another copy, Carrie?
Would you read it
Do
for
you
the
have a
folks at
copy?
home?
I'll read it. That's actually that's a very good point, yeah. So the mission that Dan had wrote
Thanks.
down. The mission of the Facilities Improvement Committee is to advise the Litchfield School Board in decisions related to upkeep, maintenance, and improvement of the Litchfield School District properties, sites, and facilities. This committee commits to soliciting opinions and expertise from all individuals who may guide the town of Litchfield in best providing the necessary physical plant for the education of our students. Which I thought was pretty good. Any comments from anyone? And then the vision was the Facilities Improvement Committee will foster a collaborative space and opportunity to address the upkeep, maintenance, and improvement of all Litchfield School District facilities. Through a fact-based discovery process, the committee will advise the school board about necessary actions while considering the impact of all stakeholders necessary and involved, which would, by and large, include the taxpayers. So,
That's a very important stakeholder group. Yeah.
so just making sure we're clear on that. And then we've talked about the way that this is going to be run.
I don't understand.
Typically, the facilities committee is someone just chairs the facilities committee, but it's sort of loosely organized in the sense that we don't really have to follow a lot of the formalities because this is an advisory committee. So, including like the posting of like the notices about the meetings and stuff, we have the calendar invite for that. So, well, that was easy. So the next thing then I think that we should start.
So you're gonna add some things about the attendance and,
Yeah, I'll try to capture these things. I think that if we want to do it tonight or continue conversation, I threw, again, in my thinking, if you flip the paper over, you look at there's,
Oh, right.
I think some question, so we have a subcommittee and even the other subcommittees in town also have a governance structure to them. So you look at other committees and they still have chairs, co-chairs, vice chairs, secretary, those kind of things. And so the one big question when I thought is, if we're truly a collaborative even though we're a subcommittee of the school board, doesn't make sense for, and maybe we want to discuss this, that there be a citizen representative vice chair or co-chair of the committee.
That's a good idea.
That was a big thing that I had. The other thing, and I don't think it's on this document, but, and I think, Mr.
Yanukovych.
Mike A kind of brought, and it's kind of getting to with the spreadsheet is to, while we're a very diverse group and we represent a number of stakeholder groups, have we got them all? And are there stakeholder groups that we want to make sure are representative of? And then, whether it be reach out and then the other thing, and just thinking more about how the selectmen and all the committees under the selectmen work, you have some say over their membership. Right now, we wanted to just build this up, so we just kind of put it out there, and we are 100% volunteer. Everyone who said they wanted to came in the room, sat down, and you're a member of the committee. While that was great to kind of build up the foundation, I don't know if we want to address, and again, we're building the guiding documents that are going to guide our work. Do we want to build some structure in there? And does it go to the school board interview and approval process, or are we just kind of open door going forward? Whether we address those now and because we want to have the solid document before we kind of do anything, or whether that's a point of those. When I was thinking about this, when I was just putting stuff down on paper, those are kind of the two things that I had. First, okay, we got to build it, and then we also have to sustain it at some point and kind of keep the wheels moving. So,
Question, how was the solicitation? Was it on a Facebook page?
It was put out through, most of it was a Google Doc that was, a Google form was sent out.
Yeah.
Through
Google form.
I
Through
think
what?
mainly Facebook.
The reason I'm bringing it up, there's a lot of people, including myself, that aren't on Facebook.
Yeah.
Me either.
I think it was emails, but I think another video.
Yeah, but even the email, as far as the school, our reach is only as far as
Right.
the school.
Yeah.
You know, so, and we've always, at some point you kind of go like, well, I guess we could have put postcards in the mail, you know, because like there's that gap.
So,
And I want to go back, I would like to go back to something that Rich mentioned, I think in one of our last meetings, I think was like a great idea, is zoning the town basically and saying we need a representative. I think you guys said you did it for the high school. We need a representative from each section so that we can have the whole town represented and make sure we didn't miss anybody, and that's where people can go to their area representative if they want more information.
That was
It
more.
was discussed at a school board meeting. I think that's when I first heard it.
I definitely think Rich brought it up last meeting.
But actually, when
Yeah,
the
Maryland
real
did.
school board
No,
meeting.
no.
Oh, was it Maryland?
Yeah, but that was more down the pipe, like
Yeah.
okay, it's time that we're gonna sell, whatever the plan is, we're gonna sell that to the humans. And they divided it up into I mean, that's the easiest way to say it, right? They divided it up into regions of the town to have people that were that information person, that point of contact in that neighborhood.
So I think my thought on what you're asking is there's a differentiation between joining this committee and also like the public outreach and getting community feedback. And so I think right now, like this is a pretty large committee. I think that we had a lot of people that reached out with interest, and I think that a lot of, I would venture to guess almost everyone in here's interest was largely based around the GMS project and the failed bond vote. This committee is going to sustain much longer beyond hopefully solving that problem. Lord willing, we solve that problem sometime in the next decade. But beyond that, we still have other facilities work to do. So I guess we'll see like how the committee evolves throughout the process with that. But my thought process is that I think we need to make sure we're representing the community by doing the appropriate outreach. I don't know that we want to continue to grow this committee. You know, if someone approaches us, I guess we can.
Well, and that's my thing is that right now we have nothing to stop that from happening. So they all got on because a Google form went out and they volunteered.
Right.
So that's the standard. Right now, that is the standard. We didn't say until this point, or there's an open enrollment for this meeting, or so like at this point,
What is the makeup of the committee? How many members do you want it to have?
without governance, with either defined numbers or representatives, a person can come in and say, "I'd like to be part of this committee."
So I think
Come on, if we want to say, "Come on in and join and grab a seat," and now you're a voting member,
I think
That's where we're at.
I think that the committee, we did our outreach was. We had the group that replied. We're still kind of sorting through whether some of them are actually going to be able to attend. So I think we need to, maybe sort through that. I would say that my personal opinion would be at this point, if someone expressed an interest, I don't think we should be adding to this committee at this current point in time.
But I'm saying, we're saying the same thing, but I think our avenue to doing that is defining membership.
Right. So, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I think that.
I think you have to put a number on it, right?
Yeah.
Like if there's 30 people on it.
Well,
now,
but here's the thing. We have how many, Mike? How many people did you have on the spreadsheet? Do you know? I don't even know what the
I can
final
count.
number is.
Bear with me. Sorry.
I assume that the school board reviewed that before our first meeting. I guess I must.
So what
It's
we
like
what we
28.
decided as a school board, Peter, correct me if you think I'm miscategorizing this, was that we really wanted to keep this open for as many people as possible because we often get accused of like only having small amounts of feedback, right? And we don't want that. So we wanted to just have it open to as many people as wanted to join, which is why we have a very large committee. The school board basically has kind of left it to us to say,
Yeah, I do think we should set a number, though.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's gonna get
And
unwieldy.
then reel it in.
well, I don't think we should go bigger than what we have, but I also think, quite frankly, that we're going to be paring this down a little bit because I think that when we start to look, there's going to be.
So the
Well, that's
concern
what I'm
then
saying,
for
because-
adding would be that you just have somebody show up and then start voting, right? So what if you just said, until your 5th meeting, you can't vote? Like, by that time, you've then
But
gotten back.
enrollment is over.
But then you're gonna say, well, oh, I have to go in front of the school board? Well, they don't like me.
Can I
I
say,
don't get onto it? Like, what is the,
Well, this is our 4th meeting,
yeah.
and I think we know who's part of the group, okay? We've all been here. There's just, I said it before, it's the same people that have been here.
Right.
This, to me, I don't see any reason to add more.
And I think anyone could be welcome to come and talk,
But
right?
not
Like, you're welcome
voting.
to come and join us and ask questions just like any other meeting.
We've established that this
Yeah.
is the voting block right here, so I mean,
I also
They
want
wanna
to,
be part of it.
want to allow for the opportunity, there's a little bit of a cart and a horse here too, because we have to tie in that conversation with recognizing that we've hit the demographics and the stakeholder groups that we want represented here. Like if we look at that role and say like, like I'm just looking around and I can't verify this, but I'm going like, we don't have a single resident from a 55 plus community.
Yeah, I was
here?
thinking the same thing.
Like something like that. Then
Nobody
we need
from
to.
the
We want to
55.
we got
solicit.
55 plus people.
No, exactly. No, but I'm saying is,
So-
if as a
Don't
committee
talk
we
about
decide we want at
Oh,
least
yeah.
representation from a 55 plus community member, then now we are building the roles, not big net anyone who wants to come in, but now it's just more
They're all
target.
playing
membership.
pickleball.
This guy.
So I think that gets
I'm the
back to
president of the
same question
association.
that Mike A, in his email asked, right, is did we get all of the representation that we're looking for?
it's fun.
But I think from this conversation, right, is we lock it, we close it, but we can then put it out there for a request, right? We fill out that spreadsheet, here's who's representing on this committee, right, if we all agree to it, and then we can say, who else are we missing? And then it would be up to the committee to say, do they join or not? And then we go back to what Carrie was saying about, you know what, if they wanna join, that's great, but they gotta be here for 5 meetings, to get voting rights or to be officially considered on the attendance list and stuff like that.
Well, then I want to throw in a complication here too, because we are all in this committee because the school board allowed us to be like. Are we picking our own membership, or does someone actually go to the school board to then get a seat on this committee?
Well, I think,
it's the responsibility of this committee, right?
yeah, I think they gotta
So-
come to this committee.
I have no idea. it's just a
The way it
question.
started, right, like is, you guys were set up a little bit, then you threw out that big net of trying to get people to come, right? And you got 30 some odd responses, just going based off the email chain we got going. And then people kind of trickled off. They either showed up at meetings or they didn't. Right now you have basically a set of people, and if 30 is your number, right, now you can start filling it back in with the bodies that you need from the areas that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Do you want to go out and get a representative from this community or that community?
The action that brought us all in here is an action of the school board, not an action of this committee.
Can I,
The school board. We got two over here first.
And then the
school-
like the school board. Somebody had to start it, right?
Yeah.
And it's for our job to finish filling it out.
All right.
And I'm looking at the long game with this, a little bit farther probably up the road than even what the school board members are. And when you look at Litchfield as a holistic entity, right? this doesn't need to be the school facilities committee. It needs to be the Litchfield community facilities to cover our town hall, our fire department, it needs to be expanded so that we maintain it all.
You don't want us to tell you what to do?
So,
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
And rec. It needs to, at some point, it needs to roll up into something a little bit bigger than what we are right now, which may be smaller at that point, but to help guide the facilities for the whole town for the future.
Let's tackle one thing at a time.
see, this should be noted, I'm being patient and waiting, like, this never happens. So, it's been a long day. I've been on committees in the past where, yes, people come in, we like this person, and then you further the recommendation, hey, school board, we're considering adding this person, you get a chance to vote up or down. So the school board could have an opportunity, so long as they first come through here. And we've done that on other committees in town, we're like, oh,
That's how conservation works, right? It's-
right,
I think
so,
going back to the statement that somebody made though, like the perception of the community that the school board is
right, but it's,
somehow
right,
like
but
puppet mastering this committee, right? Like we don't want that. We are an independent committee of the school board. We're here to make a recommendation to them of what the people want.
right, but ultimately,
It should be our job to pick the people that are on this committee.
sure, but ultimately it's a school board committee though, right? They could disband it at any time. So people could come in and say, hey, I'm interested in joining. Everybody could vote on it, say, I like this person, send it to the school board, and I would be really interested to see how they would come out of a meeting voting down said person if they get the full backing of the committee. So,
I think we're getting way too complicated.
Yeah, exactly.
This is supposed to be simple but effective. Can I suggest,
it's a legitimate question.
I think we started out with what, 30? I don't know if you, okay. So what I suggest, we'll pick a number. 20 is the maximum number. And what's gonna happen is the 30 is gonna whittle down based upon the rules we put in here for absentee. And then as it goes along, 15 or 20, whatever number we wanna pick, that will give us a ceiling to add anybody in within the maximum of 20.
So for those who are participating in other committees and boards in town, this is the largest one that I am aware of.
Well, the reality too is the school board can change any March, so just because we think we should be here,
Right.
doesn't mean that the next school board isn't gonna be a little more tight-fisted. So there has to be something written, there has to be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just wondering, so if we say, I like where we're going with this, but like, if we say, is 20 a sustainable number for a committee? Like, I guess we'll find out, right?
He's not saying you have to always have 20.
No, but I
I'm
mean,
saying
but,
the maximum is 20.
right.
And we started off with about 30. So with the rules that we're gonna put in for absenteeism, so much in your now.
Unexcused absences.
For the sake of today's agenda, is the committee okay with me summarizing the conversation of the last 40 minutes and I'll update the document?
Yes,
and we can put
please.
that up for consideration for next meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
And I think the school board should take action on appointing the members, to take an official action at the next meeting, appointing the members to this committee. Sure. Because then if you're gonna have that going forward, that action, that's already played out, the groundwork's laid.
We've already approved everybody.
So
who's
I guess
here.
the,
That's kind of weird. I really do. Like, why is the school board making a decision who gets to be on this committee? They asked for a committee.
so it's like
committee
the,
is creating a committee.
So is it a community committee or a school committee?
it's a committee of the school board. And so
That's
it's like,
right,
it's like the,
but
it's
made
like the
up of
plan,
community
it's like the planning board though. The select board appoints the
Planning board.
So ultimately, the school board could
Well,
adopt
we,
a
we
policy.
appoint them, but they volunteer in the planning board.
well, that's the same thing.
The
We're talking
school
about.
board could
Yeah,
adopt a
it's similar.
policy
That
that
was when I
allows
was
the
writing
committee
this.
to appoint the first 20,
Because they have
20
to be
people.
sworn in. That's the only reason we
So
do
I'm-
it.
I quite frankly don't think that the school board wants to have to even, right, do you? Like, I don't think the school board cares about,
Well,
I think that
I think-
if they're letting the
It's
committee.
Joe,
do
right?
that.
I think that's a valid point, right, is how's it look if the school board gets to decide who gets to give them a recommendation? So I think what we should do is, to Kerry's point, have a rule, policy, whatever that says, the group that has volunteered, they're in.
Yep.
Going forward, people would need to present, I think, to this board or committee, if they want to join, because people in it, eventually drop
Like-
off. There'll be people
Move
coming
into
in.
town, move out of town,
Right.
anything, you know.
And then
So
but I do think coming back to the subcommittee, I think I would ask the school board to grant us that authority to determine our own membership.
Okay, so let's take that back. We'll deal with that next Wednesday.
Something that gives us.
And we can
Okay to do
we can
this.
move to if that's approved, Matt, we can move to then bring everybody onto this committee officially at the same session.
That makes sense to
Well,
me,
we wouldn't
'cause you
need to.
just don't invent it out of thin air, these
We wouldn't need
rights.
to.
And you want it based in something that's an
Something.
elected body.
We should.
If the school board authorizes us to basically self-govern and decide who our members are, we don't even have to authorize it. That's the whole purpose of it, right?
Well, the benefit to that is it improves the view of transparency.
I don't want to have to vote as a school board member. on it.
It does improve the
Yeah.
optics, because then you're like,
That's what I'm looking
we
at.
trusted you enough
100%.
that
Yeah.
we're not gonna try to govern what you're gonna tell us to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the point, exactly.
And
Yes, I know,
I
but
mean, that
you
has
still
been the
should-
general
it's still-
sentiment of the
yeah.
school board.
Right, I think if you just make it official, I think
Yeah.
it'll,
yeah,
Dan's
no.
stressing out over there, I can feel it.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying to summarize this all in.
But I agree
Go back
with
to
where
computer
it's
tomorrow and go,
went, right, is it should be left to the committee, we should have a max number, right, so then that way, again, it just doesn't get out of control. And then, and then we can, whatever that max number is, we can backfill as needed, but before you can even be considered on the committee, you gotta be in attendance for X number of meetings, right? You can't just show up and say, I want voting, and then walk out.
Right, you wanna be educated, you want somebody who's educated in the issues before they start casting.
I would
votes.
think also that you need, depending how long this committee's gonna run before we make a recommendation, you need to have like a cutoff date.
Yep.
You can't have somebody come in for the second half of the
Right.
season and all of a sudden want to be a voting member.
So what you're saying is a probationary membership?
It wouldn't even be probationary. They need to start attending a meeting before January? I mean,
Well, I think it all depends on what, like, to Matt's point earlier, right, like, this committee's not here to just decide one thing.
no, I,
We're
I,
No,
here
but I
for a
think-
longer period of time to look at other things and
But how
maybe
long is
maybe
it?
But
some
what Bob's
particular
saying is
issue.
if we're gonna vote to put something forth to the school board
yep.
on, January 1st, we don't want someone to join on December 15th and say, yeah,
well,
I'm
it all
voting.
depends on what, like, right, it's more related to whatever issue you're making a recommendation on. If you're gonna make a recommendation on the high school,
Need to be on the
and it's
board
happening next
2 months
week,
prior to
you
when you
can't show
vote.
up today and say, I'm voting on it.
Correct,
At your fifth
correct.
meeting.
And it's kind of a slight to the people that have been here
Right.
for the whole year.
Fifth meeting.
And I see that as a breakdown in the transparency there, because
Okay,
they're
next
gonna say,
agenda-
oh, look at that, they padded the board at the last second
Right.
to get X. Whatever X is,
Right.
doesn't matter.
Can't do
It doesn't,
Exactly.
So it sounds like Ron and Mr. Mitchell, Dan, sorry, it's just weird calling
Yeah.
you by your first name. Kind of came up with the same thing that we circled back with, right? Is before you can vote on the board, you got to be here for 5 meetings.
Correct.
So before you can partake in a voting session, you got to be on the board 5 meetings.
Which is where attendance comes in excellent for.
Right.
Nice done.
I don't know if I like the word probationary, but we're basically talking about a probationary
an
membership
on-
and defining that.
It's essentially an on-ramp,
You don't
right?
have voting rights.
Non-voting.
Yeah, you don't have voting rights until your fifth fifth meeting or
I would
sixth
call it
meeting?
probation.
I know, I don't like that
Vested
meeting.
interest in some, or whatever the appropriate term is.
Fifth meeting is you've had to have come to 2
Having a hard
months.
time finding my words right now.
I know, right?
Yeah.
We just don't like probationary, the source.
All right, so
Must be in attendance for
So I
5
honestly
meetings.
think we're making more progress in the last hour than we have in the last 4 meetings.
well, there was a lot of getting to know each other.
It's been good, though.
All right.
Discussion's good.
Yeah. All right. So, is there anything else with respect to the operations of the group, structure of the group?
Please, no.
Ron says please no, so we're moving on.
I second that.
Typically, the longest-winded person here says please no. So,
So are we gonna circle back to this idea of the citizen vice chair?
I think that's
yes,
a great idea.
I think we absolutely should do this.
Okay, so is that on action for next meeting to figure out what that means and how it's
Right now it has
decided
citizens, vice chair, and then 7 question marks, so let me work on some wording to define what that role is.
Reduce it to 3 question marks.
Oh, yeah.
upon? Well, it's the 5
Cut it in
whys.
half to 3.5.
It's, you wanna get down to the 5 whys. Then you get to root cause.
Do you want it to be a vice chair, or do you want it to be the chair? If it's truly gonna be autonomous, essentially,
So
we're
co-chair?
asking for autonomy, do you want the school board to be viewed as being in charge? Just throwing it out there.
I think that was discussed at your meeting, when
Yeah.
the chair said that it should be a school board member, right?
We could
Yeah.
co-chair though.
I was gonna say.
I'm happy.
Some has to come down. Some of it officially has to come down.
I mean,
so-
I don't.
That's a
I think
great
right now I'm technically the
You're
chair.
de facto
Like,
chair.
I don't plan on ruling anything with an iron fist. Like, whatever anyone wants to say, go for it.
I like the idea of a co-chair.
Yeah.
Well, I just, again, if the whole thing is
Yeah,
to
let's do a
make-
coach. Let's do it as a co-chair.
Yeah,
Put some of the
I
work
like
too.
that, cause it goes back to the optics. Yep.
Yeah. Because otherwise, regardless, as reasonable a person as you are, the next person may not be, and you don't want them to be viewed as
Right.
my way, smash. So if it's like even distribution, Oh, don't worry,
Carrie, how much coffee have you had today?
I don't drink coffee.
This is just natural energy. If Carrie could bottle that, she'd be the
I did with
best-selling
middle
energy
schoolers
drink.
all day. I'm like, I'm all energized. I've had,
Tried to distill it from the budget committee, it didn't work, it was not.
how long do we talk after this?
What's the next agenda item?
The next agenda item that we wanted to talk about, and I think that this is a pretty lengthy discussion, is
Oh, no.
we need to figure out. Yeah,
As opposed to the last one.
Ron, I have another hour. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't mind
Making
getting on it.
progress. It's
Up to 7:30.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I think it's really important for us to start boiling down what information we want to get from the community. I think there's a lot of information that we've kind of thrown around about trying to distill. One of the things we've talked about is, why do we think that the school failed at the last election? I think we also need to talk about, we talk a lot about facilities and the needs of the physical structures here, but we also need to get a feel for what people's appetites are for different types of educational aspects of what we do. So, one of the things that we've talked about was consolidation, right? So we need to get a feel from the community at large. How would they support something like that if that was something we put forward? I think there's a lot of information we need to gather. So I think we should open up a discussion right now about maybe start a list of some of the information that we think we need to gather so that we can then back into what's the best way to gather it. Or we could go in the other direction.
To that point, I think you're one step down farther than you need to go. I think you need to back it up into what are the facility tasks that we need to deal with, right? One is GMS. I'm obviously new here. I don't know what all the other ones are. There's got to be a list of facility tasks that need dealing with.
That's a good point.
And we need to know what those are, and then we can either tackle them as a whole group, one at a time, or we can break up into smaller groups and do what you're saying about going and figuring out if GMS is your project, figure out what the feedback is that we need from whoever and go from there. But we need a list of what facility things do we need to tackle.
We need to prioritize the things that need to be done at the different buildings somehow.
Exactly.
We know that GMS has got all kinds of
It's got its list,
deferred
right?
maintenance.
We've talked about that
Needs to be
plenty.
caught up with. Or whatever we
What else is there?
recommend.
Does the high school need something? Does the middle school need something? Where's the list of stuff that needs to get done?
is there
I think
is there a list that exists like that, Mike, for each facility?
So let me just speak in generalities, right? So after the LMS project, LMS is pretty well set. The building's been renovated. It'll need ongoing maintenance. Obviously, things are gonna happen in a building, but overall, there are no overarching needs. It is accommodating all the students very comfortably.
But we have all the outdoor needs, though. We have the parking lot.
The one thing, you are correct. I mean, so then the question becomes, the parking lot is, handicap accessibility at the middle school is a challenge. The way the parking lot's configured, the underground piping there is now almost 40 years old. That's something that needs attention because some of the pipes have let loose or rotted out. And so there is site work that needs to be done in the parking lot.
Are you talking about drainage structures?
Correct.
Yeah, which is not unusual.
Yep. And then, the other thing is, there is the fields are not accessible at LMS. There really are no fields available. I mean, kids are playing on the Litchfield, which is not an ideal situation. So, but that's more of a want, I guess, because currently kids are able to run through the woods and get down to GMS and access fields there, or we can put them on a bus and bring them over to the high school or bring them to Dara. Most middle schools have fields accessible. There is certainly land that's available there. And so, the question is, what does the community want to do? But that's.
But I think that whether it's a want or not, it's still on the list of things we should consider as a committee. And if we ultimately decide not to make a recommendation to address fields, then that's our recommendation.
That's right.
So
And
there
so
are
actually,
there are
that's
number
on
things
the
in the
capital.
CIP, right? There's a
that's
number
on
of things in the
capital
CIP plan that I can share into the drive if somebody
Yeah,
teaches me how to share to the drive.
Well, it's in there,
Go
actually,
drive.
so.
CIP is in there?
So can I just speak, so some of you got an invite this meeting to this drive, okay? When I tried to share it with folks who do not have a Gmail account, so there are several Hotmails, AOL accounts, et cetera, it will not share with them. So unfortunately, not everybody sitting here got to share. And Ron and I went through this because we were trying to get it to Ron, oh gosh, what was that, back in December, I think?
Yeah.
And he created a Gmail account, and
Just
shared
for
that
this,
with
yeah.
me so that he was able to access it. So if you would like access to this, you have to have a Gmail account, and just create one. They're free, and send me that account, and we will make sure that we share it.
Just out of curiosity, can we just create a generic Gmail account for the FIC committee?
Well, then everyone's logged into it.
Yeah.
That could be a nightmare.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just put your name, FIC, and then that way it's just for this, or,
Yeah, I'm just thinking that, like, if you make the drive read only and then you just do a generic account, then anyone should be able to get in. But yeah, whatever works IT wise, it doesn't matter to me. I'm already in, so.
I got plenty of
Raymond.people.
Gmail burner accounts.
At gmail.com.
yeah.
People's photography. or
Anytime
something.
anybody
Yeah, that's fine.
asks you,
More, but
sign up,
Raymond.peoples at gmail.com will get you.
So, we just hit, we just,
Then in this drive, so where I was going with that is this is the CIP, and this has all of the, this has the matrix in it, and it has all of the projects. So each one of these is a project sheet. So for example, CHS irrigation. Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, the building itself is meeting our needs. It was built for more students and more capacity than what we have currently, and so there's really not a big facility stress. You're just facing, and people think of it as the new high school, but it's 22 years old. And there are HVAC systems that are starting to present some challenges, et cetera. So the irrigation system is just, pipes are just exploding underground on us, and we have to dig them up and repair it and patch it. So we've identified some of those items, and they sit here. And, I don't want to spend time tonight, I don't want to hijack this, but we can certainly do a deeper dive into what's on that CIP and make sure everybody's comfortable and familiar with what's there. But it is all here in that folder.
Well, I think this goes back to what Matt was saying, is that we might have to divide and conquer, right? Like, yes, GMS is at the top of the list, but if we want to focus on that to start with, and then afterwards, then we split off and we splinter off into 3-4 person teams, I think that might be the best way to go about it.
especially because we can then talk about, CHS. We have a maintenance component, and then we have like a, whether it's updates or whatever. Because one thing that this committee is going to have to, I think, really can help the school board with is we have a real challenge with maintenance, as you all saw with like GMS. Like we are understaffed with our custodians, and they do the majority of the maintenance. So we need to try to like come up with an idea of how we can better maintain stuff with what we have, or try to solve some of those problems too, or make recommendations that also solve some.
I think something like that would flow out of creating, there has been assessments of all the buildings in the past. And that's done by an engineering firm, come in and do an assessment of all the buildings for condition. And that sets then your priorities within the building, and we can then figure out how to prioritize that, building-wise. But my thought on that would not be, you wouldn't want to kind of segment subgroups by buildings, because it needs to be
Creating
done.
silos.
It needs to be done cohesively. They kind of an overall, what types of things I do think you can subdivide is, on the agenda is the, reaching out to the community. So you could subdivide this into how do we, put together a way to reach the community. I don't know if you want to tackle into that, but we could talk about that as a for instance.
Yeah, and I don't think any subcommittee that we do make or have ultimately isn't responsible for coming back and reporting to the board as a whole. And then there's further discussion at that point, right? Like it makes it easier for people to go gather information instead of having 30 of us try to go gather the same information.
Yes, I would agree with the understanding that it is very specific as to what the task,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they gotta know what their job is.
yeah.
So I do agree. I think that was a good suggestion as to, like, we do need to come up with the master.
It's the priority list.
Right.
I think that's twofold. There's the stuff that's in the CIP thing, which is kind of big projects, but there's also regular maintenance that needs to be done at the school that we need to schedule and budget for, so we don't run into the same situation we ran with GMS where stuff hasn't been touched in years.
Yeah, deferred maintenance is killing us.
And I have, everything I've read so far kind of points to that. There has been reports done, but there doesn't seem to have been, okay, now what do we do with it? Hasn't been a plan then implemented. I will give credit, there have been, like Dan just showed, things like the roof have been done on some schedules, but you can't go to a document that at least I've found and said, okay, here is, for the, let's say, the 3 schools, here's our plan over the next 5 years, what we expect to do for maintenance.
Right. And I'm like, that's one of my big pet peeves is like maintenance and stuff, like especially if we're gonna do a new building or upgrade a building, whatever, like there has to be a maintenance schedule that is super detailed and goes down to like even the simplest thing, like pressure washing the building. I hate driving into the GMS and seeing the portables that you mentioned last time we paid a lot of money for, just covered in dirt and grime and everything, and just like, there's gotta be just a schedule to do those sort of things.
Like an O&M kind of thing, like a maintenance schedule would be wonderful.
I mean, there's programs out there that do it. BAE, like we use it. It's a preventative maintenance and a scheduled maintenance system. So
But then it
there's.
comes back to us being short-staffed, right?
Well, I was gonna say, it really is a
Do we
short
contract
staffing.
it out? Do we get to do it in-house? Like,
Right, but
Yeah.
you can figure that out
Right.
once you know what that list is and what schedule it should be on. And at the same time, right, it also comes down to budget. Like, there shouldn't be a voting thing on preventative maintenance as to whether they get, like, it's voted as to what's to do it. I set up a 5-year preventative maintenance plan and a maintenance schedule for capital and everything else at my company, and it's phased out. I mean, I get a certain budget every year, and here's all the maintenance items. This is HVAC, this is chilled water systems, this is, humidity control, this is my clean room air handlers. Like every over 5 years, here's what's getting hit, this all fits in the budget, I get quotes every December that's valid for a year, and it just gets knocked out at its periodic intervals.
I am with you 100%, because I seem to recall advocating for said things, so I agree with you on that.
And I understand we have
I agree as
limitations
well.
on staffing, and that could be a part of the issue. And that's a decision I think needs to be made. Like, okay, do we have the staff to do this? If not, we're going to have to hire somebody.
Well, I think that's the key, the key thing is really tracking that, right? So it is definitely a staffing thing. Our facilities director right now is mowing lawns because the lawns need to be cut, right? So he's not able to do some of the things that should be done. I agree with you, that pressure
But this makes them
pressure
complete entry.
washing of the portables drives me nuts when I see how grimy the building looks, right? I'll tell you another piece is, our carpets haven't been cleaned since I've been in Litchfield. It's been 6 years of no carpet cleaning. There's no routine or schedule on some of these items that are
I
just
think
like,
that's
it's
critical,
gotta happen,
especially if we're going
right?
to try and
So
do a new building or upgrade the building. Like, those things are critical to maintaining it and not getting in a situation where now all of a sudden we got to spend $30 million to get it back to a
It also
reasonable
helps with
standard.
community input, right? Because how many people have said, well, you didn't maintain the building you already have.
Right.
Why should I give you a new one? So we need to find a way to get ahead of
change
that.
the optics, right? But with a system like that, and I don't know if the school board or the school systems have something like that already, but part of that type of system is you can set up, this gets contracted out. So if we don't have the facility, we don't have the staff for pressure washing, I see on the Facebook WhatsApp page all the time, hey, this guy did a pressure wash of my house. He did a great job. Hey, how much would he quote to do the 2 portables? You know, if it was a quarterly visit during the summer, right? So like 3 visits between spring and, the first freeze to come out and pressure wash and stuff like that.
I'll bet you could get both those buildings pressure washed once for over $1,200. Soft washed with an anti-algae compound applied.
And you can do safe chemicals, but so that is one of the benefits of that type of system is that you can state, is this internal to do? Or is this, we don't have the staff, we don't have the resources, so we should go out and get a quote and get this contracted out.
So what'll
So
be?
if I may, the
Yep.
software that we use is called School Dude. It has
I knew
all
there
of
was
that
something
built
somewhere.
in.
I saw it.
It's got all of the preventive maintenance, everything you're talking about, we have the capability to do. The issue is the staffing to keep up with it, right? So we've got the one guy who there's no administrative assistant in charge of that. He doesn't have an administrative assistant, and he's out mowing lawns. So the question is, do we want to make sure that we have the staffing who can stay on top of, because all of that, I don't know if you're entering that in or if there's somebody else helping you with it, but.
Well, I enter in for my area, but yeah, it's supported by the enterprise, right? So I've got one for my site, my area, and my division of it, but it's supported by the global company.
But the biggest challenge right now would be to do the initial data entry.
Right, setting it all up.
Because once you get set up, then it's a
Right.
matter of,
But-
okay,
but-
check, next 5 years.
But I hear what you're saying, right, is I do an administrative overhead on making sure they're closed out, making sure that they're not overdue, making sure that everything's still in compliance, and that people are filling it out and doing it. So maybe that's a recommendation we come back with, is like, hey, we need an admin assistant, or we need a part-time to help out with the facilities department on, and that's all they do, right? And so you don't need an actual admin assistant, maybe you need, a data manager or something like that, right? Something of where it's part-time, 20 hours a week, or, 20 hours a month, just to stay on top of it and say, did you do this work order? Yep, great, okay, I'm gonna close it out. Any comments? No, good. I blew head, number 138 on the irrigation or something like that. And go from there. But it's, again, that's something that, might come out of all of this.
Right. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to sort of create that early enough so that it can be presented to the school board
Yep.
prior to budget season.
Yep.
Because the school board's gonna need to have that before the end of the summer, if we're gonna hit the timeline that we need to get stuff over to.
So what is that date? So end of the summer can mean different to everybody.
I think we have to get,
You're not presenting your budget to the budget committee till like, October, November. Warren
So
articles.
late.
Warren
So
articles aren't
ridiculously late.
presented- Well,
It's 180 days away.
and warrant articles are presented generally used to be.
right, but
mid-December.
we have to go over it as a school board.
Yeah.
And then, work with the administrators to build their budgets and see how those
We
things
also
fit in the
have to
budget.
talk internally, like
Yeah.
what does it look like? How much time does he think he needs? How much assistance?
Well,
So
and
you have to really kind of scope out the position to begin with.
right. So there's a lot of that, right? But if you need a decision from a recommendation from this committee to go to the school board and then discuss internally, do you need 30 days to discuss internally? Do you need 60 days? I'm just trying to
I
gauge
would
of
say
like
probably it would take 2 meetings, right? So,
2 months.
yeah.
So 60
No,
days.
2 meetings, so a
2
month.
meetings.
Yeah.
1 month. Okay.
Realistically, this committee can make a recommendation whenever, and it's just
Yeah.
up to the school board
Right.
whenever they choose to
But
pick it up.
I don't want to pressure them to say they got to get the budget to you by next week.
Oh, no.
And doing that. So
Budget season doesn't start for a couple of months. Have you guys even started talking to department heads yet about?
all
some
I'm
of it?
trying to do is set a date
I
of
think we have
where
time.
we got to make the decision.
I think we have time.
Yep.
No,
I
it's
just having a date on the calendar is always good to say final recommendation.
We will
by this
too.
date.
And I
November
really-
1st.
And I really believe the budget committee would be very supportive of a real maintenance plan. I spent a lot of time in the budget committee, Carrie's on the budget committee, and it was always a question
Kills
for both
me.
the town and the school.
Yep.
Is,
Preventative rather than
preventive
reactionary.
maintenance, rather than let it go until it's broke. It costs us so much more when we have to replace the whole system.
It does everywhere. It always costs you more.
Yep.
I work in manufacturing facilities and factories, right? Is when you don't nip something in the butt before it happens, it's always going to cost you more of when it fails.
So the other thing that we should be very cognizant of as a committee is that we have, how many more days until you are no longer with us?
I'm not counting, but
Oh,
But I'm not counting, but it's how many hours?
28th is the date, so.
So we do need to be clear that June 28th we lose a lot of our institutional knowledge about
Yep.
how things have been running because Mike's going and Doug's going, and poor Brian is going to be helping us try to figure out.
Truck outside.
Right. So we should definitely prioritize anything that we need to gather
Yeah.
information on. We should prioritize over the next 30 days because
No,
we
I
have to.
absolutely understood. It was just a recommendation.
No, this is a great recommendation, and I think what it's causing me to realize is I typically look to Mike to answer. Okay, how have we handled that in the past? Because I don't know.
Yeah.
So
No, understood.
So is there a question I guess we can ask, I think we need to ask the facilities manager now, right? And that software you said exists, how much time would it take for that software to get built out with all the preventative maintenance that needs to happen across all of the schools?
So I think I think you have two things. Somebody needs to come in and do an audit on what's already in there. And, so for example, pressure washing the portables, I guarantee that's not in there. it needs to be identified and entered in as a preventative maintenance piece that we need to do, right?
Which is what Ron was what Ron was starting to say, which was we need to have an
Go
inventory.
system by system.
I mean, carpet cleaning in the SAU office, I'm gonna speak to that.
So who needs
I've
to
got,
take that inventory?
sorry?
Who would take that inventory? Would that be the facilities manager, or would that be this committee?
He can't keep up with it when he's out mowing lawns right now. So
Why is he
we-
mowing lawns?
Sorry?
Why is he mowing lawns?
Because there's nobody to mow the lawn.
Why don't we outsource that? Like, if you have a manager who's doing a menial task like that, it's not using the taxpayers' money efficiently. He should be taking care of things like this. If you have to outsource to a lawn company to do the lawns, is he physically taking a lawnmower from each of the schools? Is that what he's doing each?
Yeah.
That's a waste of time.
Understood, but who, so we
But-
had talked about trying to put an RFP out to get, bids from local landscapers to do it. There's some history with this too, where there was another person in town who was doing some of the mowing, but the rate of pay caused concern for the board because it wasn't what was budgeted for. So we're at the point that the grass is growing and Dave's mowing the lawns.
Yeah, and that's, again, something, right, that's an immediate need that we need to figure out now, because that impacts right here, right now. My daughter plays soccer on the field out there, and she's not gonna play in knee-high. I mean, she almost took a dive in the drainage swale the last game.
My kid's done that too. Slid right in.
Yeah.
So what we did.
Short grass doesn't stop that.
So what we did do as a board was we authorized the use of contracted services to assist with some of the custodian tasks.
It just seems like
That is a
wasting like gentleman's time if he could be doing bigger picture things than
that
mowing
is a
the lawn.
union, so we do have to work with them for those. We have to clear that stuff with them. Although I don't think that they've ever, to this date, been like, no, please don't get us more help. So I think,
No, actually, the union's been very cooperative. They've let us,
so we can bring up at the we'll raise at the next school board meeting the fact that we're doing. I just learned that I use mowing the lawn, so.
I mean, that's great. If it has to get done, it has to get done. I understand that
Right,
completely, but
but currently, right now, that system is used very much as an incident reporting system, as opposed to a
Maintenance.
planning.
however, I think so auditing it to figure out what's in there. So I'll give you another example. We had an administrative assistant in our office that when the person left the board didn't replace that position, then that's fine. But, in the meantime, we've lost other people in our facilities area, so, there's a gap. There's an absolute gap that exists, and we need to figure that out, and see what's in the system, then get it updated, and then have somebody who helps us to maintain it on a routine basis. Dave is a great guy. If I need somebody who's gonna be repairing something, Dave's the right guy to have doing it, but he's not the right guy to be getting information out of his system like that. He needs the right person to be able to assist him.
Okay, so what?
So who is that?
My question is, school dude's been around for a long time, I knew what the name of it was, but is that the right system? You even have to ask yourself, are we really using something that's up to date? A lot of the newer systems, you put in the serial number of the thing that you want to maintain, and it goes to the manufacturer and pulls all the data back. I mean, there's some ways to leverage the cloud-based stuff these days that's pretty amazing.
There is, but again, before all of that, right, it comes down to auditing the system,
Yep.
right? So, I guess, well, let's put it this way. If you need an auditor of the system, I do it for BAE, right? I do it for the Hudson campus. It's like a $2 billion profit center. So I can help look at that and set that up and at least go through little by little, audit and go through, and then I can go do the investigations if needed. So I can volunteer my time to do that to start with, but to address the overall concern of, great, I'm gonna audit, and you're gonna get a snap in the sand or a line in the sand as a baseline. How does that keep going? That, I think, is something that we as the committee should be trying to figure out, right? And go from there. I mean, I'll do it as a one-off as things, but I get paid, yeah, I was gonna say, I get paid a healthy salary at BAE to do it for BAE as a part of my job, so it would be something after that is that it should be a planning with the school system and the board and the town to figure out how to stay on top of that internally. Because I believe should be an internal thing to do, because you're not gonna get all of the information from an outside person doing it.
Well, I think that's a generous offer for you because you have the skill set to help us analyze it, and then perhaps going from there, once you have a good grasp on what we are faced with, then you'll have an even better ability to help us decide what do we need to employ to like actually get this.
Yeah, and school dude may be the right thing.
Or not, but again, there's just one item that was up there on the board,
Yep.
irrigation. How many budgets does that appear in? Recreation, schools? I mean, if we need to look at it like one level up. We divide the money and go like this, but are we getting the best bang for our buck? Irrigation is not a super, it's not like programming rocket ships. I mean,
Talking
you're
two
watering the
different
grass.
budgets, though, right? Like
Well, but you could still
there's a town
leverage.
budget, that's the rec committee, and then there's the school budget, which
That's true.
But what he's
but
saying is we may
I'm
have
saying
we may have better economies by looking at it holistically.
economy of scale.
And the reality is, they already do that in some cases with the town buys
Yeah.
oil for the library, or whatever it is. There are some already those interconnections. So there's an ability to leverage the
I'm just saying,
purchasing power.
let our vision be like this rather than like that.
Well,
You
you already have
know,
a
maybe there are
resource somewhere,
places
like,
where we
let's
can
leverage
grab
the
little
same
economies.
resources.
Right.
So, I think we identified a couple of critical things that we need to figure out. One, get the information out before Mr. Jet leaves, and then the other thing is to figure out how do we free up facilities, managers, maintenance, and people on the school facilities so they can. So we, again, longer term vision is that come the next school year, we have a plan in place that we've got all of the right resources and enough resources to tackle some of these things, right? So that way we don't go into the next school year with a brand new LMS essentially with all of its new zero environment impact stuff. That, I mean, that's all high grade technology stuff that needs top of the line investigations and maintenance and stay on top. You let it start going downhill, you're gonna pay double to keep it up and get it up and running again. So that's gonna be one of the things of, I think that to me is an objective for starting the next school session is we get that piece, I'll say, you know, in parentheses, lying flat as to how we're gonna handle this gap. Cause during the walkthrough, Dave said the same thing, right? He's got 3 people to cover 3 schools. And that I just don't see that. I've got in my one building, I've got 7 facilities people, right, that go off and do different things, but you know that they're all there for everything involved with the facility and the plant engineering.
And what you were talking about LMS and all this high tech.
Say again?
Is there a facilities team, or is it just the one?
So Dave is the facilities director.
Yep.
Joe is the custodial supervisor. And then you have a custodial lead in each of the 3 buildings. And then there are custodians. Now, there are many vacant positions that exist there.
I mean, I definitely look at it, there's a distinct difference in my mind between a custodian and someone who's responsible for the maintenance.
Right, and facility engineering and maintenance.
So our custodians do perform the maintenance.
They're doing double role,
Yeah.
basically.
It's part of their.
And to speak to that, I mean, Dave and I was adamant with him, to your point, I was adamant those filters at LMS have to get changed every 3 months. Because, you know, that's what the manufacturer's saying, we're not gonna void a warranty, change the
Can't be
filter,
forget.
get it
You
done.
can't,
And,
forget.
you know, we just have to be insistent on those things. And he's like, we're shorthanded. I'm like, I don't care, we'll hire a high school kid. You know, you have one person who's up on the ladder and a high school kid who's just handing a filter up. We gotta get this done. It's gotta happen over breaks.
Especially like brand new high efficiency equipment, if you don't do it, you're gonna wreck the whole internal system.
Well, and that's where getting your system set
Yep.
is gonna help you prioritize those things that you need to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And
then-
when you
and
need
then-
to do them, so your schedule's better, you're not like running from this building to that building, and you're not, you get more organized and know like, okay, Tuesday the 15th is filter day, we're doing it, every month it's getting done.
And to that point, I know the LMS filter stuff is not entered into School Dude, right? Because we just haven't caught up with
So
that,
we need
right?
someone that's
we need-
responsible for managing.
That's why
the
the
school.
audit will, you know,
Or whatever
uncover
it's
some of this.
And to that end, with all these, like LMS is a good example, out of this whole school dude, this whole investigative procedure should come a list of critical spares. You know, especially stuff that comes from out of the country these days. You never know when it's gonna stop. That contactor becomes not available. So you should have a list of critical spares and have them on site for when that emergency happens, you can take it off the shelf. It doesn't have to be huge inventory,
Yeah.
but your list of critical spares.
So one thing that I kind of want to hit on, and this is something that we can talk about offline. Can you send me the link, or is it available on the school board's website or something that I can go look at how those open recs for the facilities and in custodial staff is, where I can see them all? Because like part of my concern is if it's listed as custodial staff and it's rated for custodial staff in terms of pay, but yet they got to do maintenance, that is two completely different pay bands.
Well, that's
the
dictated
job
by
role.
their contract, right?
That's in our collective bargaining, but I can definitely get you that info.
Yeah, that's something at BAE, right? It is two completely different pay bands. It's two completely different requirements and set of stuff. So I just want to make sure we're not precluding people who are perfectly qualified, but they're searching on and they're seeing custodial, not facility maintenance.
If you look at the LSSA contract under the school board tab, then you can see what we
Okay.
offer even in the contract in the different bands.
Yeah, no, that's
So-
And then you can ask the question, how many of these do we have?
So the other thing we need to figure out is we're gonna figure out who sort of manages the school dude thing and keeps it up to date. We then need to make sure that we have a clear line of communication between, I guess it's Dave and the superintendent, so that the superintendent can then address to the school board. Like for example, we're just hearing today that Dave's so busy mowing lawns that we're not able to do other stuff. Like we then have to be able to address what stuff do we need to start talking to the union about. Like, do we need to outsource something right now to try to keep up with it?
And make sure that they have training for whatever work that you're expecting to do, because I mean, I'm sure that none of those guys have had art flash training or anything like that that's normal in industry today. So that opens the town to liability without providing a proper training for the jobs that we expect them to do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that can come out of this audit of planned maintenance, right? Is to figure out, because out of that audit, right, one of the things I'm going to look for is, great, first thing is, how do we knock it out? Easiest way, contract it, right? Here's the short list, here's the short items, go to the union and say, here's the 5 things that we haven't been able to touch in 5 years. I want to get this off the books and start fresh. I want to contract this out.
So that's piece one. Then piece two is us having to go back to the school board and figure out, where in the budget we can.
Yep.
Has the increase in the rates for custodial staff produced any responses?
Do you happen to know?
I don't know the answer, Ron. I'll get back to you on that.
Because one of the things is that was the reason that was put forth last year.
Well, it was a twofold reason. One was to try to keep those who are here from leaving,
Right.
because we were
In
very
jeopardy
close
of
to
losing more.
losing more.
Right.
Yeah.
But also have the ability to attract as well.
Yeah.
So my question is,
Has
has
it,
that
right.
produced any fruit yet?
Yeah. We can
I
check
don't
with HR.
think we've attracted more, but I'll get back to you on
I can tell you anecdotally, there are a few people that I've heard were considering this going to be their last year, but they're going to stay on for next year because of
Because
that.
of the
But that's
pay.
more in the support staff, the
that.
paraprofessionals.
And that was the retention piece, not the attracting.
And I guess let me
Go ahead.
the reason I bring this up is one of the things you'll need to look at is instead of just wildly going out and contracting, which is not a bad short term, there needs to be an assessment of what your structure is in place that could fill these. And do we need to make some changes in the structure of the union contract to address getting the types of people you need?
Right, so that's another thing that, if this committee has the bandwidth to do, we should start looking at immediately, because this is a negotiating year with LSSA.
Okay.
Manpower is an issue, obviously, for everyone around the world. But we have an issue with fields right now. We have a critical issue right now. Because it's springtime, what happens in the spring, the grass grows. What happens in the spring, we have all kinds of field activities, both from school and from the town. So I think and nothing's any worse than to go to a softball game or a soccer game or whatever and have people coming from all over the place and the grass is this high. It makes me feel ashamed. So somehow we need to coordinate with town, with the coaches, with the parents. We have to somehow make sure, And I know there's a pecking order with respect to the fields, but like, I see that the middle school baseball was practicing last night. Softball was practiced. We have soccer games going all the time. I have a perfectly good John Deere, and I live across the street. And it wouldn't be the first time that I have volunteered to mow grass. So, and what
I'll
you
attest to
do,
that.
what you do when you reach out to the community, you not only get your goal of getting the grass, but you also bring that community involvement in. And you make them feel like they're part of the school effort. And I think we can't wait 2 weeks, we can't wait a month. That needs to be done as soon as
So after our last meeting, the board did have Doug Totten reach out to our insurance company just to make sure that whatever we solicit for volunteers isn't going to cause an issue with insurance. And so we had a brief discussion about that at our last meeting. It's complicated, but
Pressure washing was one of the issues that we could have people do. They didn't want people getting up on a ladder or
using saws,
using saws
yeah,
and stuff like that. So.
But yes, so
Spreading
we
mulch,
are
cutting the
having a
grass,
conversation.
that sort of stuff. Riding the lawnmower is okay.
So what you do is you
I'd
just
love to help
remove
you with that
yourself,
audit.
and some parent says, "Hey, you know what? My kid's playing this week. School looks," and then if the school's not, officially involved, and the lawn just happens
to get mowed.
then
I mean, listen, if someone's driving their John Deere across the road and they're like, "Oh, look at that,"
I think from a 30,000 foot level, it's important that the schools, that includes the curriculum, the faculty, the facilities, sort of represents the community, the values and the structure of the community. Litchfield is a very property poor town. Almost all of our revenue comes from household real estate taxes. We have a lot of property in current use. We have a lot of agricultural property and so forth. We have very little in the way of a commercial tax base. So it's important that we have a history and a culture of frugality, okay? Now, I'm not talking about eliminating preventative maintenance, but we need to be frugal with what we're doing. And, when I heard the architect last week, or last meeting, talk about, we could have saved an awful lot of money here on this plan if we'd have wanted to, I about fell out of my chair. That is directly contrary to the culture of Litchfield, of frugality. So when we look at from a 30,000 foot level, we need to, community involvement is key. We need to, when we have the maintenance director mowing grass, that's travesty. That person has so much to do. That person should not be mowing grass.
So I absolutely agree with you. I got a diesel Kubota that I can drive down Pinecrest and go mow the lawn too. But one of the things that we have to understand is exactly what was mentioned about the union. Union's one battle, but the insurance, right, and the liability. So, and I understand your concern, but if I look at that 30,000 foot view, if I drove that Kubota on town property into the drainage swale and it knocked me out and I'm trapped under it, that is a massive lawsuit that this town just is not going to be able to pay for.
The other problem that we have as a town, in my perception, is that we like to rely on volunteer stuff, and that's not a good long-term plan because when people stop volunteering,
Yeah.
We have an immediate problem.
Right. And for the immediate, right, is to solve can a citizen just go off and do it immediate is one thing. The other thing I think I'm kind of trying to recommend here is, can we go talk to the union to say, can we contract out lawn mowing?
So we can bring that conversation to the school board to approach them. I think the problem that we run into is these are great answers to problems until we go back and start having to look at, okay, now we're contracting this, now we're contracting that, and the budget all of a sudden is like gone.
But that
There's only two solutions, right? You either get the staff to do it,
Right.
or you can contract out. Like,
What my point is what you're going to learn from being in this committee, which is what I learned from being on the school board, is all of a sudden there are no answers to certain things. You're like, okay, we have to now try to find a new path forward to try to figure out answers with the fact that we have to be frugal. It doesn't always lend itself to being able to do all of the things, which is why we're in some of the position we're in.
Understood.
So to the volunteer effort of using equipment on town property, we have the Conservation Commission that goes out with our Kubota tractor all the time. I mean, I think we use the same insurance company. Primex covers the town and the schools.
Did you just have a
correct?
cleanup over at Dara Pond with all kinds of stuff going
I'm
on?
just saying, I don't see the insurance issue being.
Well, if it is,
insurmountable.
So we reached out. We reached out, right? Like, and that was what we got back.
But the
right?
reality
and
is-
there's no like.
There's also one other
motive for
mower
us to
sitting in another garage that somebody could.
But there
demand.
is also the reality that I think the school had a lawsuit much more recently than the town did, which could also affect the insurance's stance. But the town does contract field maintenance, so we could, in theory, reach out to that contractor and see if we could leverage. Hey, you're already working in town. You already brought your equipment here.
Can we right?
Rather than mobilize two different places, maybe we can mobilize you once throughout the town.
I want to pull back from it because I think we're getting hung up on one particular issue, right? Like,
Short term.
mowing the grass is not monopoly. It's a thing he's doing, right? But he doesn't do it 5 days a week for 8 hours every day, right? There's got to be.
He's probably doing
on.
it's probably taking a lot longer than we're thinking.
So I use mowing as one example.
It's an example, right? Like,
I'll tell you
that's what I'm
another
saying.
is
You gotta figure
lining
out, like,
fields. I mean,
what's going on that we can't have the facilities manager managing as opposed to
lining the fields, right? So you take getting a lacrosse field initially lined up, that's a major undertaking. And then once it's done, keeping those lines up is another major undertaking. So, it takes multiple people to do. And we brought forward a proposal to you. We actually had a demonstration of a lining robot. And it's all satellite driven. It's accurate to within like a quarter of an inch. You press go on it and it lines the field. And we were not able to bring that forward because of concerns about the cost of the robot and the cost of maintaining that. So, so we're back to, we're paying people to do it who aren't doing other jobs. This is the stuff that we have to think about. And, to Rich's point, we have always emphasized, I have always emphasized frugality. Like, what is the best bang for the buck on this? So we saved 12 grand on a robot. But we haven't saved 12 grand on the robot because we made up for it with all these other things.
Yeah, you're paying 3 people to do it for, every year, right? How quickly is that 12 grand absorbed?
Right.
Does every school pay? But I just know that my husband's school, like, the parents did it the night before the game. Like, is that really okay?
No, we're getting into the weeds. I have
Yeah,
to
really,
agree,
go
but
on.
Yeah, I'm just,
there are other solutions.
You gotta
Is
figure
that
out
a
what
pun,
the tasks
Ray?
are and just lay them out and say, like, all right, these are the things we have to
Getting
do
into the weeds.
every week, and these are the things that we have to do monthly, and these are the things we have to do bi-weekly or.
the nice thing about that is
We
you
need to
create a
move on.
manpower report, right? These are how many
Yep.
man hours I need every month.
Yep.
I'm short 2 people. That's easier to justify than say, hey, I think I need a maintenance person. Well, show me why.
That is, but it all starts with that audit,
Right.
right?
No, I agree.
And that's exactly how I do the manufacturing, that's how I do my engineering staff.
What's the next agenda item, please?
This so really this wasn't the agenda item we were doing. We were going to talk about community outreach, but I think that this is a good time to start identifying our next, what are our action items from this meeting.
So,
What we're gonna talk about, though, community
outreach.
outreach is a.
Well, I
So-
think also, I don't know if we could talk about community outreach, but we wanted to finalize, some of that had to do with the revisions that I have to do. I don't,
Well, and I
The,
think I derailed that by saying, like, before we can do community outreach, we need to know what we're outreaching about.
But the
Yeah,
reality
we
is,
don't
we
have a
have to
list
use a
yet.
timeline, right? The people with the knowledge base are on their way out soon, so you want to be able to use those resources.
Right.
So that is going to be a higher priority.
Right.
So yes, I think the audit should be.
well, I guess the question I thought we were going to at least begin to talk about is trying to get some feedback from the community as to why they didn't support GMS.
Right.
And that's a different,
Yes, that was what I was starting.
that's what I thought. Okay, so,
But then we went into the
all right,
to
so
the,
let's
the
talk about that
And
then.
that's one of the tasks on the list.
Because the audit affects all three schools.
But that's
So
the-
regardless
that's-
of-
Matt, aren't we on the board talking about doing that anyway? As a school board?
well,
Right,
but I
we
think
talked
that,
about creating a survey, sending that out to everybody in town.
but I think that that's I think that
We could use that
There was a
information with this,
con-
from this
I
I
think
committee.
this
think the
committee. I
school
think it
board-
really is going to be an action of this committee as
I
opposed
thought
to
the
the school board.
board was
Yeah,
concerned
and
about
I'm
it
of the
coming
mind it
from
was gonna
them.
be the school board that did it. And then that information can flow to this group.
I think that this committee. I mean, tell me if anyone thinks differently. I think this committee should be. I think it's a broader base of people that we can better, as opposed to the five of us saying what information do we want to gather. I think it'd be helpful to have this committee figure out what information.
Leverage another thing that's coming. The new town website, right? The new town website allows you to create a logon, create a user, and is there a way, is there built into that software some facility for doing surveys like that would reach every citizen in the town that's a taxpayer?
That's registered on the town.
Huh?
That's a user on the system.
Yeah, but from there, right, instead of having to create a Google form and then a Facebook form and then
Actually just log in
a
and do it.
Survey Monkey form, right, if that's possible with the website system, then you just send out a postcard. If you want to participate in all future surveys, go in, create a login, do this.
So
And then we can post it everywhere, right? We can
Well,
post it
I-
in the school system and everything.
wholeheartedly support the technology solution. I just dealt with this at work, right? I work for National Grid. We sent out opt-out letters for a marketing campaign. The amount of people that wrote us handwritten letters and mailed them back saying, I don't have an email, I don't have a computer, was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So like we need a way to reach
Yep.
people that are not digital.
And that speaks to the over 55 community too.
Whoever it is, I don't care if you're 20 or 55.
So,
there's
so,
people out there
so
that are
I will
not
tell you
digital.
that the over 55 community. So we had the opportunity to go to one. I thought that was a great opportunity. They came out and to their clubhouse, and we had an awesome turnout. And it was a great opportunity to deliver information.
But my point is, are they connected
Right.
with IT?
I think what we're gonna need to have a multi-tiered.
Yes.
It's not just the over 55s, because I know people who used to rely on the HLN.
You want to reach every address in Litchfield, it's not very expensive. You can use every door direct mail, right?
So
Did you mention HLN?
I know people who are like, man, I miss the HLN. That's
HLN.
where I got all my news from. So now they're like, they don't hear anything unless somebody tells them
Before we
directly.
talk about
And
that,
they're not in the 55
Give you a thumbs down.
we should agree on the what.
Yeah.
I was just writing
I was gonna say, before we do anything.
what do we at? What
Right,
do we
yes.
need now? So there's gonna be a component of this that's gonna feel somewhat premature, and I think it's not premature in the sense that time flies by very quickly. In a perfect world, I think we would get through the exploration at GMS to identify the current state of the building, and from there we would have a better idea of, okay, well, what's the actual cost to do all these things, and maybe that ends up driving this committee to say maybe we needed to look at the consolidation effort or something like that, right? I don't think we have the luxury of waiting through all of that to start probing for information.
Parallel paths.
Right. And so I think what we end up needing to start to ask questions proactively, even though we may not ever explore them, is, do we want to find out from the community, how do you feel about, just blanket, statement here. Like we're not actually taking action on any of these things, but we're trying to get a feel for what different levels of support would be for different options. How do you feel about?
I think it has to be even more macro than that. If you think about this, I don't think it's wise to go out and say, how'd you vote last March? Why? I don't think it should have that flair. I think really what it should have flair is, in general, when you go into March and it comes to the school votes, what are the things that you are considering? When you think about the future of schools in Litchfield, and we can pare it down from there. What do you see as future? When it comes to management, what do you think is going well, and what do you think? It needs to guide us as opposed to just were you a yes or a no? How come?
And see, and I'm of the other thought process. If we guide the people, we're steering the boat. You know, we need to let them steer their own boat. They're intelligent folks.
Yeah, but here's the problem. If you let people,
You could ask some questions, but let them pick the answers. You know?
but if you let them steer the boat, here's the problem you run into is people have idealistic, images of what they want, but it's not always achievable, right? So like when we were doing the master plan, when I was on the planning board, you had people say, you had some people say, I'd love to see a Walmart in Litchfield.
Yeah.
That's not realistic, right? Like, so it's. You have to shape something.
So that's why it should be a multiple choice or yes no answers on there, because you start having people write narratives. How are you going to assemble that data?
Oh yeah, no,
I agree. No, it can't be.
You
It
have
can't
to
be
be
nerds.
very crafty about how you ask the questions and what questions you ask, and
It's not about how you feel. You really want them just to answer the calm, cool, and collective, not throw emotions.
I wasn't saying that they should all be open-ended questions. I was thinking more the spirit of the questions needs to be more guidance to that, as opposed to.
I'd actually suggest the questions ought to simply be probing as to why you voted as you did or didn't. And I think you can craft a vote. For instance, did you feel that the options for other than a new school was adequately addressed? Yes or no?
I think that's what Dan's getting at.
But we also have to look to what we can.
That's how to, I mean, that's one question, and then,
I think that's a legitimate question. It's a good question.
yeah, I think you need to produce probably 20 questions,
Max.
and that's all you need.
Yeah, I don't even
And,
think that.
and I agree with
Send
Greg.
it out every door direct mail with a return envelope.
Well, but
So
I think until you actually put them together.
when I'm bringing
it
up the
should be-
example of the consolidation piece of it, though, right? Like
Yeah.
one of the things that we sometimes sometimes speculate, but it would be good to identify is there was at least a portion of people who had like this visceral reaction when we talked about potentially moving kids, middle school kids to the high school, right? If we were able to get a sampling of 80 to 90% of the town that responded, which we never get, but if we did, hypothetically speaking, and we had 75% of them say no, I would hate to see us pare down. We then know, okay, like we would never have support from that because the town has already spoken on that.
Yep.
Right. So I guess that's my point is like I want to make sure that with whatever we obtain, we can get some good guidance that helps us.
Well, I think that's exactly what, like to Ron's point, like, you asked that question of like, hey, of these options, what would you like to see more investigated? And would you be, another question could be, are you in support of a reworked new school proposal? And if all of the answers come back no, then we know not to even bother going down that road.
But we have to be careful because if we say which of these would you like the most, right? We need to also be able to gauge which if okay, you like that one the most, but would you vote absolutely no on this other one? Because we need to have a better feel for where people's hard stops are. Because
Yes, no, maybe.
Or you got a rank.
Yes, no, maybe, because maybe says that maybe they might change their mind based on whatever information they get.
It's very critical on how you ask the question.
I think any talk of a new school is done, because,
I completely
listen,
disagree, and that's
it
not the
was
job.
overwhelming.
It doesn't matter.
Overwhelming, it does matter.
No, it doesn't. The job of a
How many times are you gonna
politician
kick
or a
the
committee
voters
like
in the
this-
face? You can't kick the voters in the face.
That's not what I'm saying
That's
to do.
what you're doing. If you
They-
bring forth a new school, you're saying what you just said last March in mass is worthless.
No, it's
That's
not.
what you're saying.
I'm saying you told me, all right, the proposal we put forward wasn't good enough, and we need to come back with something better.
And the
feel
one
strongly
before
both
failed,
ways.
and the one before failed, and the one before that failed. There's been
so
four
your
no's.
your solution is just to never change that school. We're gonna keep
No,
throwing
you're gonna
money at that
renovate the
building
school. That is what
forever.
the people told you. They do not.
They did
want a
not.
new
So in
school.
fairness, they didn't
They
say.
do-
They did not say we support a renovation of the school.
No,
what
but
you're
they said
arguing is that
do
they
not
said
want a new school.
Okay, but
So
they don't know
I-
what renovation costs.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
It
If
does
the
not. Your
renovation
next
is
step,
$30 million,
your
it
next
matters.
step is to move forward.
The key thing with
next step is
any
to move forward.
proposal that you make to the people have to feel that they're a part of it. They have to
Yes.
feel that this school, whatever solution we come up with, this school is not just a facility, it represents the future of Litchfield. And they have to feel confidence in the administration, the school board. I think
The systems.
very specifically, this committee goes a long ways down that path. It's good.
100%.
Because the committee before did not represent the community. I mean, a 3:30 meeting does not get the blue collar people that we want. Also, we can't have some sort of polling mechanism that goes out to just the parents of GMS people.
So just to be fair though, I do want to, I want to be fair that we continue to learn as we go through things and figure out how to make things better, right? And so there was never an attempt to just poll parents. Just to be clear, we spent a lot of efforts trying to poll a lot of people, and this committee is going to continue to figure out ways to better get more information. I don't want to attack the past. I don't want to attack people who have put in efforts in the past. What I want to focus on is how we as a committee can improve.
Well, there are people in town that are asking for accountability. All right? They're asking, how did we bring a $40 million bond issue to the town that got 44% of the approval when you needed 60? What's the accountability there?
When you say what we need accountability, you want someone to be punished for bringing.
All I'm saying, we need to learn by our mistakes. We need to learn by our mistakes and understand that there's a philosophy involved in bringing a facility to the people. And the people have to understand it's theirs. The people that didn't have, they gave a resounding F to the proposal.
It was a difference. It was a difference of less than 400 people. So when you actually look at the numbers,
But the time before, it was 130, I
I
think.
think that's irrelevant, right? To your point, I think you're 100% right? We need to figure out why that proposal failed, and if the resounding reason is the price tag, then we know, okay, it's not about the fact that they don't want a new building. That price tag was ridiculous.
Agreed?
Well, I can tell you, I stood at the polls all day, and I had hundreds of people coming up to me. We don't need a new school, the price tag, the trust factor. They've not looked into renovating.
Those are things we have to show them as this committee. That's our job.
So,
to
but
show
to
them,
see, like I
here's
saw
the
an email
renovation
earlier
cost.
today, how do we change a no vote to a yes? That to me is the most
Who's saying that though?
Inniscovich or whatever that sent that out right before the meeting. I think that's the most
I don't think we're trying to
disingenuous,
change anybody's
disparaging
no
thing you
yes.
can say to the citizens.
We're trying to figure out why it got to where it got.
Because of all the things.
And
Yeah.
it's our
Well,
job to either
You can look
address
at how,
those
you
things if
can
we
look at how
can.
LMS was run. That was an absolute fiasco from the start. It was a rushed project.
So, but we're
That we didn't even hear about on the budget committee until we were.
okay. But
getting
our goal is
It's a whole
to
list of things though.
our goal is to focus this right. And so the reason why I take offense is because I was one of the people that brought that project forward. When you express that you think that I need to be held accountable for that, I did what I thought we were presenting something that was giving the community an opportunity to decide on that, and they decided that way, and that's great. Now we're going to try to evaluate a better.
Move on, nobody's holding you accountable for that. So this town hall,
Right.
it failed a bunch of times.
Right.
Right, Bob?
One time.
One time.
I went back and it
Fire
failed.
department?
Listen, let me
Same thing.
clarify that.
Right.
This failed one time, and it's when it needed 66% to pass.
Yeah.
It failed 66% by 13 votes.
Great.
66%, not 13.
Right, and so
I mean,
now you're
not
on
60.
so now you're on this committee, and so you're going to help us.
Can I,
And
can
the
I,
first thing, the
can
first
I
thing I
ask-
said to you and Dan after the vote was announced, I said, now let's get to work on renovating, didn't I? Both of yous, right? And that's why I jumped on board, because as people spoke, and I'm willing to get in there and get involved.
can I offer to put together a first draft of questions to consider?
Sure. Yes.
That'd be great.
All right,
Can I make one suggestion?
yes,
Yeah.
please.
I think we have to move beyond why we failed the last time, and what will the citizens buy into, and what will this pass this time?
They want renovation.
Right.
And
They wanna
that's
fix the school.
where that survey comes
The
in.
And I
extent to
don't
the
disagree
extent
that
that
there's a
to the extent of the
clear
why,
balance.
I think it's
We don't
just
know what that
it's really
costs.
it's helpful to know
And we need
if
to
someone
figure that
says, "Look,
That's-
I absolutely it was just the number." Right? Like if for someone it's just the number, right? Then we know we have to really focus on the number. If someone says that, I'm personally passionate about the GMS building and would hate to see it demolished, right? Like then, we kind of get a feel for it. It's not more. I don't think it's about a finger pointing. I think it's more about just like what
I'm
are
not trying
your
to change anybody's vote, right? Like,
right.
I
to me,
think it
the
becomes,
main thing was like that price tag was so off the charts, and I had brought it up in the original like reimagining Litchfield stuff. Doing the passive house and the net zero stuff was going to put that budget so far out of whack. We were never going to get that passed, and it should have never been in there in the first place.
All right.
You've got to build something that's simple, that gets the job done, that meets the needs, but doesn't blow a budget.
so getting,
Can I just want to just respond to Mr. Leary, which is just, I think if we go back to how this meeting started, where we talked about the mission and the vision, while I don't think it should be a goal to figure out why March has failed and how we fix that, but I also think we're doing a disservice by taking any option off of the table. I think we have a duty to at least explore everything that could give us a path forward.
See, I'm a big advocate for when the people say no, they say no. No means no. It's
No,
actually,
but what did they say no to?
it is now a state law.
They said no to a $44
because of
million
the-
need.
And Bob,
People at home-
I am completely in agreement, and
at
I
home
think
can't
we'd be doing a
understand our meeting. Too
disservice
many people
if we
talking.
just did all this work
Grab
and
this.
put the same thing we put forward.
I
Again,
think
that
if you-
would be,
But
you already tried that, we're doing that
As I
again, and
said
we're
to
just
you
keep
and I
forcing
said
it.
to Matt, if you come forward with bites out of the apple instead of trying to have the whole pie at once, I think you can bring forth renovations to this building that will pass the people. I honestly believe that.
So I'm gonna
Wait. So, to that point, we are scheduled on May 28th to begin to answer the question.
Right.
So we are not gonna solve it here. I appreciate what Bob's saying, I appreciate what you're saying, but for us to sit here and argue about whether a new building's the right answer,
And I'm not saying that, I'm saying, but we need to allow for.
All right, so we
everything.
gotta rein this in because we only have 1 minute left. So I'm gonna let you say what you want to say, and then I'm gonna ask.
So originally, when I hijacked that meeting, we talked about, let's look at GMS to see what could be fixed, what was not fixable, and where to go. And we didn't even look at, and we haven't talked about or looked at one of your items, which is, how do we teach in that building? So, I mean, that's all part of our end game.
Yeah.
But I think as we launch into this, the school board can fund a survey to send out by mail, so we avoid technology. The only problem with that is that somebody's gonna have to take that data when it comes back in and do something with it. It's electronic, it's almost done, but,
I think you've got to do both, right? Like,
well,
multi-tier.
get
All right, so I'm gonna have to pull this back because it's 7:30, and I can't say her name later.
and I agree.
So
Gee, shows up late and leaves early.
no, I leave on time.
Comes in late, goes home early, and make up for it.
And I'll be back next week for the school board.
And I-
Can we just summarize? Can we quickly summarize action items for that we're going to address before the next meeting? So first and foremost, I think the most important thing: how are we gonna? What is our next step forward with what we were talking about with respect to
the audit.
Yeah. Do you want us to connect?
So,
Connect with
actually,
Dr.
I have it on
Jetty?
my agenda to meet with Doug tomorrow, and we're gonna figure out, like, because I think there's probably a simple audit report that we can pull out of the system. I just need to dig into it a little bit, so we need to figure out what's in there and get it.
Yeah, so we gotta be careful because those audit reports is crafted when they set up the system, usually. So we gotta make sure that the audit report covers everything that's on it, or that we truly need. So, I mean, I think it's a great place to start. I'm not discounting it, but at the same time, I think, I mean, you have my email and whatever, right? If there's a way that we can connect offline and we can come back to the next meeting, here's how, we have a structure and an architecture of here's how we're going to conduct that audit and go from there, right?
and I'd love to help you with that. And I have plenty of experience working with Dave Ross when I volunteered down at GMS, so I know Dave pretty good. I'd love to help participate in that.
Yeah.
So you guys could connect with Dr. Jetty and maybe set up something with Dave. Okay.
Yeah, and go do whatever you need to do internally, and then we can figure out the structure and the architecture to come back and to figure out how that audit should be executed, right? And so I've got no issues with that.
Can I make a suggestion that we keep Brian in the loop as well?
Oh yeah, Brian's been.
That like the audit and everything because he's gonna be walking into this and that.
Even Brian, the new superintendent.
Can I?
Yeah.
Before it slips out of my mind, one thing, if we're going to be considering buildings and even maintenance, One thing that I would like the school board to do is reach out to our neighbor, Mr. Planty. He owns the property in which the ditch is in, which we need to get in to maintain. When I was doing my initial walk around, I met Mr. Planty. No one's spoken to him,
The street behind GMS.
Anna Lane.
Anna Lane, thank you.
In 17 years.
Yep.
If you noticed, when we were walking around the other night, he was standing on his porch. Would somebody from the school board go and meet with him? He is not opposed to us working together, but I would ask that somebody
Open the door.
reach out to him.
Sure, I think the initial conversation would just be a preliminary conversation of.
Absolutely, but
establishing-
just please, just reach out to him and say, we'd like to,
So for my school board, that was my next action item was, so school board, we're gonna talk about the contracting for lawn care. We're gonna bring that to the board and ask for more information on that. We'll ask about Mr. Planty. Was there anything else that we needed to send to the school board after this meeting?
That you were gonna
How they wanna
check on
request the structure of the
Yes.
committee itself,
Oh, right.
requesting
Yep.
the autonomy
Yep.
to.
You're also gonna confirm that May 28th date for the thing with Kyle.
Right.
Yep.
Kyle,
3. All right.
If you guys will organize
28th at 2.
And then you'll probably have something in the meeting after that, because then I'll have the revised.
Like I said.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm looking at
All right. So I think that that's everything.
What's 28th?
Yeah, and then it just,
Dan was
It's on
gonna
the
rewrite
Tuesday
the-
after Memorial Day.
Tuesday
I was gonna capture, but Dan was gonna rewrite the
Gotta
charter.
fix that.
in the governance section
Oh,
of the
Dan's gonna
charter.
rewrite the governance stuff.
Yep, with his notes, and Ron was gonna start drafting initial questions for the survey.
Yep.
Who manufactured that line robot? What was, do you,
Oh, I'd have to get back to, I don't know.
I was just curious.
If anyone has survey question ideas, I would suggest emailing them to Ron so that way he can. All right, awesome. I think that's everything. Thank you all.
Motion to adjourn? Oh, wait, we can't motion or vote, never mind.
We're adjourning.
We're adjourning.
Get a motion,
Hey, not for nothing, but I coached at LMS for 2 years and at Campbell for 5, and we lined the fields ourselves, the coaches.
You're volunteering to line the fields?
When I was coach, I did.
That's what the
I heard you just volunteered.
baseball does